Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 3 Marketing Essentials to Help Restart Your Practice webinar. We are delighted to have you with us today, and we hope you will enjoy this presentation. Without further ado, I am pleased to introduce your host, Mary Claire Charlton. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Fanny. Hi, everyone. Good morning to those in the West and good afternoon to those in the East. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on 3 Marketing Essentials to Help Restart Your Clinic. My name is Mary Claire Charlton, and I am Manager Marketing at TELUS Health. We are delighted to have you with us today, and we hope that you'll enjoy and benefit from the presentation and discussion. But before we start, I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. So first of all, know that everyone is on mute except for the speakers. And the second note I wanted to make is due to the current times we're living in, we are presenting this webinar from our respective houses where we have less control over our internet connections and our environment. So I just want to apologize in advance in case there's any potential connection issues, lagging, doorbells, dogs, children on webcams, etc. So thank you for your understanding. For optimal viewing, we recommend hovering your mouse over the icon at the top right corner of WebEx, and you'll be presented with 3 options. So you can click on side-by-side view, and that's what we recommend to see our speaker's video. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can send a message in the Q&A or chat area, and we'll try our best to help you. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sharing the recording as well as the slides by email, hopefully by tomorrow. So look out for that. Now, I am pleased to present our speaker for today. Jon Morrison is the co-founder of Clinic Sites, a marketing agency dedicated to helping healthcare professionals with their unique challenges. Jon understands the pressure of being an excellent practitioner, clinic owner, and trying to find time to do marketing. He is passionate about connecting the medical community to the best marketing tools available. Jon is an Oxford University alumni and TEDx speaker, and he joins us today from his home in Abbotsford, BC, where he lives with his wife and 3 daughters. Now, without further ado, I'll pass the mic over to Jon.
All right. Thank you, Mary Claire. And hey, everybody, good morning or good afternoon. It's great to have you on this webinar. Thank you for carving time out of your busy schedule. I know there's lots going on these days, both personally and corporately, and it's just great to have us all together today on this call. I hope it's going to add a ton of value for you because this is the kind of a time when we're needing value, right? Everything's kind of reset these days. I want to talk a little bit about the thing that we're all talking about, which is COVID-19. I believe it's one of the biggest disrupting forces in our lifetime. This is kind of one of our things that we will be defined as a generation by how we deal with it. And everybody I know, whether it be friends, family, or clients, is affected by this little virus, right? Imagine how crazy it is that this tiny little virus has affected the entire globe. But that's just the truth. And if you're feeling it, like if you're feeling the pinch financially, I totally understand. If you're feeling it just with stress, with the different challenges that are coming at work, or maybe in your family life, or as you just try to make sense of the new social norms, it's totally normal. And if it's affecting you, and so much so that you can't focus, I get it. Let's try to dial in today because I believe that we actually, in light of this difficulty, there's some amazing opportunity that's before us. Here's some good news that I want to tell you that COVID-19, while it's a major pain in our butt and really sad what's going on for a lot of people, both economically and their health, for clinic owners, it's provided an unprecedented opportunity to get a fresh perspective and start. Now, I'm an opportunistic person, so I don't want to, pretend like it's not difficult, but I also want to say that, in the words of my business mentor, that when things get difficult, this is when true character starts to emerge amongst the leaders and business owners. Right? He was telling me as he was getting all excited about a downturn, I said, why are you excited? Everything's shutting down. The NHL season's been canceled. Schools are disrupted. Everything's disrupted. Why are you excited? He said, from a business perspective, this is the opportunity to gain the most ground. He said, while so many people are turtling inside their shells and just hiding until this all ends, he said, this is an opportunity for strong leaders to emerge. And he really challenged me, do you want to be a lion or a turtle during this time? I want to be strong. I want to lead well with my business, and I know you want to too. That's why you're taking time to do this. So I just encourage you during this time, to make sure you focus. You know, there's probably tons of distractions. Maybe you need to close the door or turn off your notifications on your phone and just take out some old-fashioned paper and pen, because we're going to, during our short amount of time together, really seize the opportunity to grow your practice. That's what I want truly for you. Is I want to grow your practice in this world, you know, well, as you restart after COVID, or as you just continue to go on, maybe, who knows how long we're going to be through this COVID season. But in this season, I want you to grow. I want you to reach new people. I want you to see things that you never would have expected at the turn of 2020. And so there's some opportunities here, but you got to focus. We're going to get through this together. Now, there's a lot of things that you could do to help improve your clinic, but we can't talk about them all. We're just going to talk a little bit about marketing. And now, talking about marketing during a pandemic, it seems a little bit tone deaf, but it's one of the most important ways to share your ideas. Marketing is not some salesy thing. It's really just about getting ideas across to people. And I really want to thank Marie-Claire, our host, and TELUS Health, the entire community there, for valuing this, for putting this on. And even the fact that, as you know, we're talking to Canadians here, TELUS is a great Canadian company, but it's kind of interesting that we can even think about marketing right now when so many of our brothers and sisters, whether it be to the south or around the world, are still right in the midst of the pandemic. They're not even thinking about this. We really got to thank the nation of Canada for the great job they've done in dealing with the pandemic. I heard of this story about a couple of Canadians that were being interviewed at the passport office, right? They wanted all to get a job. There was a lot of demand, so the waiting room was full for the interview. And one guy went in there, and he just looked all really put together. And the interviewers looked at him and said, "Sir, you know, there's a lot of questions we could ask you about the history of Canada. We only have time to ask you 3. So we're going to ask you 3 questions to see how prepared you are for this." First question they said is, "When was Canada founded?" And he said, "Well, many circumstances happened over a long period of time. It was an exciting time, and things came to a climax about 150 years ago." They said, "Well, that's a really good answer." They were all very impressed. Second guy on the panel said, "Who was the founding father of our great nation?" He responded, the applicant, "That's not a very fair question. Who am I to pick one man? It was truly a team effort. There were many people involved in the process." They nodded again. Next question came, "Well, what do you believe is the biggest problem facing our nation?" He said, "I don't know, but I'll trust our government that they're looking into it. I'll also lean on the professionals and cooperate however I can." They all just thought that was just the best answer. In fact, never before this happened, they stood up and they started applauding and cheering. Well, you can imagine all the people in the waiting room waiting for their interview were a little bit intimidated. In fact, the next guy to come in, he was the most stressed of all. That was a tough act to follow. So he kind of wipes away his brow as the really impressive applicant walked out of the door. He looked at him and said, "Tell me about what you said that got such a great ovation." He said, "I don't have time to tell you. I'll just write it down on your hand." So he writes down the 3 answers that he was asked. He said, "Just say this and you'll be totally fine." He goes, "Okay," straightens his tie, walks in there, and the panel looks at him and says, "Well, before we get into our interview, we just have a couple of questions about some discrepancies in your application. We have a question, sir. What is your date of birth?" And he goes, looks at his hand. He says, "Well, many circumstances took place over a long period of time. Exciting times came to a climax around 150 years ago." And the panelists kind of shook their head and they said, "Well, we need to actually do a background check on you, sir. Who's your father?" He said, "Well, that's not a fair question. Who am I to pick one man? It was truly a team effort. There were many important people involved." Finally, the one guy slammed on the table and said, "Are you out of your mind coming in like this, answering these kind of questions?" He said, "I don't know, but I'll trust that our government is looking into it. I'll also rely on the professionals and cooperate however I can." And needless to say, that fellow did not get the job. Sometimes just copying other people and doing what they're doing is not going to work. So let's talk a little bit about marketing and how that story will relate. Because so often when it comes to marketing, we just think, I'm just going to look at what people are doing down the road or just kind of do the status quo. But the truth is that in life after COVID, the status quo isn't going to work anymore. It's a new reality. Or if you try to do the things that you did before, it may not work. And marketing in general is just difficult, right? Because you're thinking, can I just do the bare minimum because I'm working hard helping my patients, I'm busy enough running my practice, and then you actually have to do the marketing, right? If you actually sit down and say, okay, we have to put words on our website or we have to create a brochure or we got to do social media posts, what are we going to say? And this is where so many clinicians struggle. They struggle with this phenomenon or this the symptom is that they're confusing people, and the root of it is the curse of knowledge. They struggle from the curse of knowledge. I get that word from a guy named Lee Lefevre. I don't know if you can see my screen here, but he wrote in a book called The Art of Explanation that the better you are at talking or doing something, the harder it is to talk about it, right? If your peers and your coworkers and the people you went to school with, they all think at a very high level, like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. They're just so good at what they do. You're good at what you do. Everything you read online is all about people that are good at what they do. You're always trying to get better. And then you got to write some words on your website or write a brochure. It can be very difficult to dumb it down for people like me to read it and actually be engaged. So if you're really smart, if you're good at what you do, or you're an expert clinician, it's going to be hard for you to do marketing. So it's no surprise that so much of the words that are on websites or brochures is confusing to people. And the truth is, when we're all moving fast, we don't have time to be confused. I've never had somebody come to me and say, you know what, I'd like to know what you do. Could you just give me a little riddle? Because tonight after dinner, I'm going to sit down on my chair, and I'm just going to think about what you do for a little while, and I'd like to figure it out. So I'd like to solve that riddle. That's never happened before, and I don't think it ever will happen. We need quick, simple marketing messages. And so if you're good at what you do, you're probably struggling with that. And lastly, one of the reasons why we don't love marketing is marketing can be a total waste of time and money. I've heard so many horror stories of people that have spent tens of thousands of dollars on marketing that was overpromised and under-delivered. And it was a waste of time, and you never got the money back, and you just said, you know, I'm never going to do that again. To combat that, I just want to give you hope that not all marketing is bad marketing. There's really good marketing out there. And I want to encourage you with the story of the great poet Jon Bon Jovi from the days when he was obviously spurned by some girl, to which he penned the words, "Shot through the heart and you're to blame. You gave love a bad name." Somebody in Jon Bon Jovi's life spurred him. They caused him to write these words about this woman that gave love a bad name. Yet, Bon Jovi did not give up on love. We know through his chronicles that he would to write amazing love ballads like Bed of Roses during his time. And so I want to encourage you, like Bon Jovi didn't give up on love, nor should you give up on marketing. I just want you to give up on ineffective marketing that confuses and doesn't work. So that's what we're going to talk about. How do you do great marketing in the life after COVID? And to do so, we're going to just reset everything, right? Imagine you just didn't have a website, and imagine you didn't have any social media account or anything. We're just going to do a reset. That's kind of what happened with COVID, right? It just caused us all to reset. I remember in my childhood, playing video games, probably played way too much, and all of a sudden in the middle of Mario 3, the screen freezes and the red light starts blinking. That was the end of the game. We all knew that. But was it the end of the Nintendo? Was it the end of the actual experience? No, it wasn't, because there was this beautiful thing, this solution that we called the Nintendo Blow, where we turned off the system, took the game out, and blew it up and down. You all know what I'm talking about. Those of us who grew up in this generation of the first generation of Nintendo, we did what we called the Nintendo Blow. It solved so many problems. So we're going to Nintendo Blow on your marketing, and we're going to just hit reset, and we're going to pretend we're going to start all over again. And these are the 3 things that you can do to thrive after a restart, because we all want to thrive after a restart. We don't want this COVID thing to go on and to affect us and have to cause us to close down. So here's what I'm going to propose. 3 things. 1, I want you to leverage the power of story to create a clear message that connects with your ideal patient or client. We're going to use patient and client interchangeably here, but that's basically what we want to do. We want to connect with the people that you want to connect with. If you could fill your schedule with one kind of person, that's the kind of person we want. Secondly, I want you to develop a strong online presence to leverage the best tools available. And third, to become a resource to your community with proven content marketing strategy for clinics. Okay, so those are the 3 things. Let's go through them and fly through them here. All right, thriving clinics have a clear message. And to have a clear message, you need to have a clear target. You don't just want to stand on a pedestal and try to talk to everybody. Imagine if you actually tried to do that, right? If you had a soapbox and you stood on it and you tried to speak to almost 8 billion people that inhabit planet Earth, right? What language would you speak? You could pick all of the languages, but that wouldn't work. You'd confuse a lot of people. If you try to talk to everybody, you're going to talk to nobody. So the best thing to do is to pick a certain person, right? This is the person that you just want to fill your schedule with. We'll call them your ideal patient and client. And how do you connect with those people? I'm going to give you some points here. The first thing is to understand who they are, where they hang out, and what they want in life. Right? What is it that drives them throughout the day? because you are an ideal client or patient of somebody, and somebody is thinking about what you want and how trying to get themselves in front of you. You have to do the same with the people that you want to reach. And the way you reach people is to get inside of their head and their heart, because people have this laser focus today. We're hit with so many marketing messages, thousands of marketing messages, people trying to get our attention throughout the day. It's created a lot of noise out there, and the way we humans have adapted is to just tune into the stuff that we only care about, right? The problems that we're trying to solve, the people that we want to become. And the way you do that, storytellers and communicators, they understand this so well, is talking about their pain points. Because there's something that's driving people to become who they want to be, but there's also things that are holding them back. And that's the stuff we want to get rid of in our life. There's things causing us frustration and stress and anxiety. And we spend all day trying to solve that. It affects the shows that we watch, the ads that we actually pay attention to, the blogs that we read, the conversations that we have, the courses we sign up for, are all because we have a pain point that we want to solve to become the people that we want to be. Right? So talking about your pain point, talking about your clients' patients' pain points actually makes things interesting. Let me just give an example. During COVID, my wife and I, unashamedly, we've watched a little bit of TV. Okay, not a little bit, a lot of bit of TV. And we're constantly looking for new stuff because we're just plowing through other stuff. Okay, and here's one of the things that was really interesting to me. Somebody referred me to this Amazon Prime show called Little Fires Everywhere. This is not a TELUS endorsed plug. This is not even, I don't even endorse it. It's just an example. In the very beginning of this 8-hour season, they have this huge fire in this beautiful mansion. And we can't figure out who did it. Was it an accident? Was it an arson? Who did it? And the whole focus of the first few minutes of the show is actually asking the question, who caused this fire? They give us a theory about who it was, and then you have to wait 8 hours to find out. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of spending that much time watching shows, but if a problem gets me that I'm just like, I have to watch, then I'm hooked. And that's what problems do. So talk about pain points. And here's one that I love, is actually be the guide. Show up in people's lives, not as the hero of a story, but as a guide to the story. I don't have time to focus on this point, though it is well worth your time to read the book Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, where he shows that the most important character in a story to a hero is the guide. Your client, your ideal patient, is the main character of a story. It's their story, and it's the most important thing to them is winning their story. They're not looking for another hero, says Don Miller. They're looking for a guide to show up. So if they're Frodo, they need a Gandalf. If they're Katniss, they need a Haymitch. If they're Luke Skywalker, they need Yoda or an Obi-Wan Kenobi. So be the guide in people's lives, and you will find that you can capture their attention. Fourthly, cast a vision for their best outcome. Use the word imagine as much as you can. I mean, you don't have to always use it so it becomes like overwhelming, but just think about it. Like, imagine how great it would feel if you could walk a mile without feeling like your hips are going to explode. Imagine how great it would be to finish a race. Imagine how great it would be to finish a game of golf and even do another round the next day without feeling like your body is going to completely destroy itself. Imagine how great it would be to play with your kids on the floor without being pain-free, or play with your grandkids on the floor. When you get to learn how to cast a vision for your ideal patient's success, then all of a sudden they will pay attention to that too. So get a clear idea of what the best outcome that you deliver for them is, and then put it all over your marketing collateral. Put it in words, put it in images, put it in videos, but that's what people are looking for. They're looking for, how does this clinic or this service help me become the person I've always wanted to be? And then finally, call them to action. Call them to action with a very clear, this is what we want you to do. Have you ever been on a website and you wanted to do business with the person? Maybe it was a service or a consultant or a course or something that you wanted to give them your money, but you didn't know what to do next. Right? You thought, maybe I'll go to the contact page, but do they want me to phone them? Do they want me to email them? And eventually you just say, this is not worth it. This is unclear. And so you go to their competitor. That's a major missed opportunity for that company that didn't have a clear call to action. I believe you should have a clear call to action in all of your marketing collateral. Make sure you think, whenever I'm going to write something, or I'm going to create a brochure, or I'm going to put words on my website, I need to call people to action. Do it in your emails, do it in your blogs, do it on your service pages, all throughout your marketing, on your social media posts. Make sure that call to action is clear, because people need you to take strong leadership. when they're reading your stuff. And so tell them where you want them to go and what you want them to do. And the reason why we start with number one, having the clear message, is because everything that's going to follow is going to be built on the foundation of this clear message. Imagine if you skipped this, right? And you just started to just put words everywhere, right? You may say, I can use the best software, I can use the best tools out there, I have some of the best designers out there. But if you do have those things, but you don't have a clear idea of who you're going to reach, you're just going to add more noise to an already noisy world. And we have so much noise out there. We have enough unclear websites. We have enough brochures out there that we've been killing so many trees for years. We need clear marketing collateral, and that's why you always start with number one. Who are you going after? What are their pain points? How are you going to show up as a guide to them that's going to help them out of their pain and into who they want to become? What's the vision for their best outcome? And what's the call to action that you're offering? Just one thing that you could do is I just want you to get clarity on your ideal client. What are their struggles? Why they should trust you, and your call to action. Write those points down and then do it. I also, at the end of this, I want to say that we have a coaching session available. This is what I do. I'm a certified story brand guide. I take people through who's their ideal client and all these important points of creating a clear message. You can learn more about that at the end. But this is, it's a crisis for you. It's a Thursday morning for me. This is what we do all the time as a part of helping people with their marketing messaging. All right, secondly, I believe thriving clinics in the world after COVID have a strong online presence. Thriving clinics optimize online tools to connect with their ideal patients. So once you have that clear message, now it's time to broadcast it. But what are you going to use? There's so many tools out there. There's thousands of different software products and new coming all the time, right? So, what website platform are you going to use? What social media are you going to use? Again, it all comes down to where is your ideal client hanging out, right? If you have a hunting ticket, and you have a ticket to hunt moose, so you've been given that license, you're not just going to show up and you're not just going to start shooting every animal. That would be terrible. You're just going to find, you want to say, where are the moose hanging out, and I want to just target moose. It's the same way with your online presence. You can use all the tools, but you only want to use the tools where your people are hanging out. And so I want to show you 3 places that they're hanging out. One, they're hanging out on your website. Secondly, they're hanging out with Google. So let's talk about those two and how they can work together. Your website is the foundation of your marketing. Okay, it's so important because people will still check websites, right? So websites are the places where you can do your, you can capture their attention with a beautifully well-written out homepage that really targets your ideal client, calls them to action, all that kind of stuff, wins them over. It can give information about you as the guide, so it helps you build empathy as a human being, authority as an expert in what you do. So this isn't your first rodeo. You help people all the time. Here's your certifications. Here's things that you've done. Here's testimonials. Your website is the hub of all of that activity. That's where you want people to land. Okay, and so we believe that websites have to have great design, but they also have to have that clear message. And thirdly, a website has to be integrated with Google. Okay, because if your website looks great and it has a clear message, but no one's visiting your site, it's kind of like being all dressed up. I mean, I still have horror memories from my days of high school. Getting all dressed up on a Friday, but having nowhere to go, nobody calling. You say, John, maybe you should have done some more work, maybe been more proactive, made some friends. Yeah, okay, sure, probably could have. But that's for me and the counselors to decide. If you're a counselor, do reach out to me and help me out there. But more importantly, with our marketing, we want to make sure that your site is optimized with Google. See, Google has a certain objective, and that's very clear what it is. It's not to be hacked. It's really to be understood. When you understand that Google's desire is to just give its users the best possible experience. Their users have questions. Google wants to point them to the best answers. Okay, so people are looking for stuff. Google wants them to point them to the best solutions for the stuff that they're looking for. And that's all Google wants to do. I mean, if you're Google, you understand. This makes total sense, right? You don't want people looking for something and finding bad information or the wrong information. Google wants people to be trustworthy. And so Google is constantly looking for who is trustworthy that I can point people to. And one of the ways that Google has given us this way of just saying, here's what we do. You can trust us because look at how we've created our Google My Business listing profile. If you've ever Googled a company, let's just say Prompt Therapy Solutions, one of the things that you get is this big piece of real estate on the right side of the screen. This is like marketing gold, right? There's all this information. about Prompt Therapy Solutions, this fictitious company here, and they actually have their address laid out, their phone laid out, and then a link to their website, and you can also read reviews. You really want to make sure that you have this listing claimed, that the information is accurate just as it is on your website, right? Because again, Google wants to give trustworthy information. If you create a Google My Business listing and the address is wrong, or you've moved, or something's happened that you're no longer at that address, and your website shows something different, that's going to make Google look bad. And you don't want to make Google look bad because Google doesn't want to look bad before its users. So you have to have information exactly as it is on your website, as it is on your address. Okay, so here it will be the hub of a lot of your marketing, because then if you have this strong, I've seen a direct correlation from where people rank as well in those important web-based questions that people are asking. So a strong Google My Business listing matched with a really strong website that answers a lot of questions. By the way, your website really can, when it comes to how your website is usable, a couple of more things I just want to say about that. One is, like, when we talk about telehealth here and the e-claims thing, people are going to have questions about that. E-claims is an amazing service that you offer, but it's not so commonly known amongst the public yet. So you need to have a page that's talking about what is e-claims, who do we work with, who are our partners, and why it's important for them, why it's actually saving them time, solving a problem, helping them become the person that they want to be. A website is a great place for this, so that you don't have to be answering questions all the time personally. It saves your admin staff, and it also saves the people some time that are just looking up stuff online. If you say e-claims is valuable, tell people why it's valuable so they don't have to call or look it up on someone else's site. So a website is very helpful for that. Another reason why we say a website needs to be simple to use is because you have to pivot quickly. So we have hundreds of website clients, and when COVID hit and everyone got shut down, people needed access to their website. They needed access to it quickly. They had to either make a change in messaging because maybe they were offering telehealth now, or they had to explain the process of telehealth. Maybe they had to change the way they were offering solutions, and you needed to change. They couldn't give the same messaging that they were before COVID, after COVID. So I feel really sad for the people that had a website that they couldn't make changes to. Maybe they had some web developer who wasn't answering emails because they were super stressed out, or maybe the web developer doesn't exist, or maybe the website platform was just too difficult to use. So you need to have a website platform that's easy to use as well, and that looks beautiful. So those two things, plus our third point here, which is a social media strategy to engage in online conversations. There was one today in the dark ages of social media, not all that long ago, when companies, even clinics, thought that social media was all just about broadcasting information, talking about how great they were, and making announcements about themselves. And that really does go against what social media was all about. The heart of it is about connecting real people, right? So I want to exhort you to keep social media social. Don't go on there just to talk about yourselves. Just like you don't like people at parties that just want to talk about themselves all the time. Don't go to social media just simply to talk about yourself, but go to social media, right? The thing that you can, that I want to encourage you is to be a part of conversations that are happening in your area. People are looking for the services that you offer. People are looking for the answers to questions that you have answers for. And the truth is that you may have some conversation topics that you want to bring up because you're truly interested in what people are thinking about various things. So you could be a conversation starter. You could be someone who provides value. And where are you going to do that? Well, you could do it around the water cooler, but there's not really many people hanging out around water coolers anymore. You could go to the community center, but there's not a lot of people going to community centers anymore. Your local chamber of commerce, BNI group, but you get it. Everything is virtual these days, and so you got to show up where the people are, and that is on social media. Social media use in the time of COVID and going forward is only going to continue to skyrocket. And as we learn it more, people are becoming more and more aware of a sales pitch, and they're becoming more and more aware of just true people showing up and just being themselves and adding value and being a part of conversations. Those are the kind of people that I want you to be. So what can you do? 3 things. I want you to look at your website from an outsider perspective. Right? Whose story is this telling? Is it really all about you, or is this all about how you can help your ideal patient or your ideal client? Who's the hero? Are you the hero, or is the client the hero? If you're becoming the hero, it's gonna get not the attention that you deserve. I want you to think about your website from an outsider perspective. Is it suffering from the curse of knowledge? Are there too many syllables, or just too much content on there, and not enough space and not enough beautiful images of your ideal patient thriving? Right, so just even ask somebody, right? Just find somebody online. You could even ask them, or a trusted friend that could look at this for the very first time and say, does this website have great design? Like, is it modern looking? Because people will still judge websites, judge you by the look of your website. And of course we tell our kids, don't judge a book by its cover, don't judge people by their clothes, but we all do still. It's just part of being human. And people judge companies by the look of their website. So ask somebody to take a look at your website and give you a fresh perspective, because I bet you're too involved in it. For social media engagement, this is one that I kind of like. It's try the $1.80 strategy for a week. What's the $1.80 strategy? Well, this is from marketing guru Gary V. Vaynerchuk. He talks about giving your 2 cents 90 times a week. Okay, giving your 2 cents 90 times a week. So if you want to increase your presence online on social media, give your 2 cents 90 times. What does that mean? It just means giving a comment, or talking to somebody, or offering your 2 cents about a topic. If somebody's asked a question, you can provide your perspective, and just starting conversations with people, and adding, like, sharing some content that was important to you. And if you just do that just a little bit 90 times, you'll find that people start talking back to you, and all of a sudden you realize that the principle of life, which is, hey, show up and you'll get noticed. If you show up, you'll start to get noticed. People will start talking about you. They'll start referring you. They'll know the problem that you solved because you've showed up 90 times with your 2 cents. All right, so just try it for a week and see that you'll start to become part of the conversations. You'll start to get tagged in conversations, all because you showed up 90 times with your 2 cents. Thirdly, I want you to do an incognito search of your main service and your area. Incognito search is a certain setting in your browser where you can say, Google, all those years of data that you've been collecting on me, I want you to ignore it for a second. And I don't want you to think about it. I just want you to pretend like I'm a nameless, faceless person doing a search of a chiropractor in Toronto, or a physiotherapist in Coquitlam, BC, something like that. And just search those things, your city, in your service, and see who shows up. How are you doing there? Because if you're going invisible on Google, this is going to be a problem. The people that are searching for you, or people like you, are not necessarily going to find you. And that totally frustrates me, right? Like, that's the thing about life that I don't always appreciate, is that the best businesses don't always get recognized by the people that need them. The best teams don't always win. The best politicians don't always get elected. And so this kind of frustrating. This is kind of the thing that I live with. My mission is always to give people the tools, give the best clinicians, the best business people, the tools they need to get found by the people that are looking for them. If you do these 3 things, your website, your social media strategy, and increase your presence on Google, you will start to be found by people. Your website, your online presence will start to generate new revenue for you as you restart and thrive in this new world after COVID. My third point for thriving is that thriving clinics are a resource to their community. You want to be viewed as an authority by creating valuable, engaging content. I guarantee you already are an authority. That's what your certificates or your degrees will say, or your Google reviews will say, but you're not always going to be found by the right people. And to be found by the right people, you have to actually add value and do some work. And I understand that's tough to say, but it's just the truth. You got to do work and you got to show up. I love the Hamilton musical. And one of the things that I love about Alexander Hamilton is the guy was a writer, right? He could write, and that's where he found his influence from. Maybe you're not a writer, but maybe you could work with somebody who's great at writing and give them your ideas. I'm going to give you a bunch of little ideas that you can take. I realize time is precious and limited, and you got clinics to run and family to take care of and patients to treat. But if you're interested in this, how to become a valuable resource, let me just give you a few points. And we could do a whole presentation on how to optimize all of these, but we just don't have time, obviously. First one is to write emails. How are you going to write emails? You already write emails all the time. So take an idea that you have. In fact, I would probably, before we even do this, just make a list of 50 things that you know, right? 50 things. If you can't think of 50 things, write 25 and then do another 25 more. But then you'll have an idea. These are things that I know. These are problems that I can solve. This is good insight that the world needs to know. This is what I tell my patients all the time. Make a list of those 50 and then send them one at a time in an email. Write 50 emails. But then once you have the emails, then you can write blogs and you can put it on your website. So not only did I email my client list, but now I can actually turn that into a blog to the public. Okay, so now I'm creating awareness internally with my patients. I'm telling them I'm still here and here's something that's valuable for you that's going to help you. And now I'm going to the public and saying, hey, we're over here. Here's a problem that we can solve. We solve it for our patients all the time. We can solve it for you too. Some people aren't interested in reading, so they're going to want a video. Well, the good news is you already have all that stuff, so just take your camera, turn it on, facing you, and just talk. Everything you said in that blog, in that email, put it on a video. Here's another cool thing is that you can actually have a podcast. Anybody can start a podcast. If they've got a voice recorder on their phone, which like I'd say 12 out of 10 phones actually have voice recorders now. So you could, sorry, my math isn't always great, especially near the end of a webinar. But you have a voice recorder, I guarantee it, on your phone, and you can start recording yourself. Or you can go on Amazon and just get a cheap podcast setup. But then all of a sudden you just start recording and take those 52 things or 50 things that you knew and make them into a 5-minute presentation. Or you could interview somebody that you've helped or interview an expert. And then all of a sudden people start to listen to you and you become the expert in that particular issue, in that service or solving that problem. And this is the last one. I kind of like this one these days because I've seen it work so well for some of my clients. One of my clients kept telling me, I'm on the news again, could look at this post or whatever. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. How are they asking you and why you? He goes, well, it's obvious. I tell them what I need to get, what they need to hear. And I said, well, that sounds a little bit arrogant. He goes, no. Every producer of every news media is looking for content to fill. And they know that people are excited to hear certain topics. Right now, with everyone working from home, he said, news producers are actually looking for people, experts, who can talk about proper ergonomics for working at home. And so I am an expert as a chiropractor, and I do that. So I just told them, if you're looking for somebody to talk about ergonomics, here's my points. And then they call them up and say, hey, can you be a guest on our show? And what that does is it just makes you an expert. It makes you the authority. You can post the interview on your website and say, look, this is some of the authority that we have. We've added value. So there's just 5 ideas. There's more out there, but it starts with making a list of the things that you're good at. Okay, so as we wrap up, we're going to get to questions in a second, but I just want to give you a few things. One of them is totally free for you. You can go to our website, clinicsites.co/tellus. That's how we know you're coming from today's presentation. And I've made a resource called Clinic Website Essentials. We're going to talk about 4 things that your website has to have. If you don't have these 4 things, you're missing out on opportunity. Let me just tell you, great design, a clear message, Google friendliness, and easy to make edits. I want to talk all about those things and why they're so essential for you in this resource. Totally free. Thanks for coming today. It's a gift. I did a lot of work to put it into you. My years of expertise, it's free for you. Okay, next thing I want to offer you is a marketing clarity session. You remember how we talked about the importance of a clear message? Well, I can actually work with you we'll spend an hour together just going through your ideal patient, their pain points, how to connect with them. Every time you open your mouth or put words on your marketing collateral, you need to draw from this idea. This is my message, and here's how we connect with people. And so you can schedule that on our site there, on the little page that we made for you. And lastly, if you need a new website, we've got a great tool that can really help you make a strong online presence. It is the foundation of your marketing, and it can do so much these days. If you're like, I don't know how to do websites, that's okay. We've made it very simple for those who are on a budget, and we can come in and help you as well. That's all we do is build websites for medical clinics. And so, there's a faster way to do it. It does take a little bit more budget, but let's have a conversation about it at least. So I want you to do those 3 things. Well, hey, whatever one you want to do, but that's my offer. Go to clinicsites.co/tellus, and you can learn more about that. I'm also going to put my TEDx talk, because some people were asking about that, I'm sure. I'll put that on there, and you can just watch that on that page. All right. Today we talked about 1, to thrive going forward, you need the power of a story to capture attention. 2, you need to build a strong online presence with a website, optimize Google My Business page, and engaging social media. And thirdly, to become a resource to your community to add value and build authority by leveraging some of those tools we use to connect with people that you want to reach. If you do all these three things, I mean, imagine what life could be after COVID, where people are like scheduling scheduling appointments with you all the time. They understand what you do. There's clarity. You feel great about your marketing. You believe in marketing again. You're excited about every day that comes because you never know who's going to come through, and you're filling your calendar with your ideal clients and patients. Wouldn't that be great? It just takes a little bit of work, and what better time than now when you have the time available to do it, and now you have some of the skills that we know work for thriving clinics. So thank you so much for attending. Today I'm going to turn it over to my friend Marie-Claire, and she's going to lead us in what comes next.
Thank you, Jon. And to our listeners, I hope you were able to pull some valuable learnings that you can start applying to your own clinic and market as early as today. I think there was a lot of takeaways that are easy to start working on right away. So hopefully that was helpful for you. I wanted to take a couple of minutes to mention that if you are signed up for eClaims and you offer eClaims in your clinic, it can also be weaved into your story, that story that Jon was talking about. eClaims is a value-added service, as you know, that patients appreciate and seek out, so definitely don't hesitate to leverage it in your messaging. And we in the eClaims marketing team have created several pieces of content to help you do just that. So you can visit the web address below, telushealth.com/eClaimsmarketing, and you'll see we've created several pieces of content to help you there. So there's digital pieces that you can download for free and post on your social media, on your website, in your newsletter. We also have some printed pieces that you can order to display inside your clinic. So all of that is available to you as of now. And with that, we are concluding the presentation part of this webinar, and we're now going to turn to you for questions. So you can ask your questions two ways. If you joined by phone, you can dial 01 and ask your question on the phone directly to Fanny, the moderator, and she'll connect you into the audio of the WebEx. Or you can just type your question into the Q&A box on the right panel of WebEx, and I will ask it out loud. So there's already a couple of questions that came in partly through the presentation. So David asked, what if you have more than one client group / a diverse set of ideal patients?
Right.
What would you suggest for that?
That's a really good question, David. And you know, it comes up in every industry. So it's not just you that's struggling with this. What you got to do is, well, a couple of things. One, for your homepage or your main brochure or your main social media, you have to take a step up, right? And you got to find the umbrella message that covers both those patients. Okay. So if there is a way to do that still gives it some potency, some clarity, you need to talk about how you can help both of those people, okay? And that's very important because you don't want to single one of them out at the expense of the other. But then you have to find a way also to portal it off so that you can actually get very much more specific with person, we'll call them patient A, and then you also want to have a page that talks to patient B. And then you have that messaging also brought out too. So you're gonna draw out who's our ideal client base, right? And what's our message to them as an overall clinic or service that you provide. And then, but patient A has a certain set of problems and a certain set of objectives and testimonials that he or she needs to hear about. It might be a different call to action, and you're going to draw all that out on another page or another post or a blog or something that you're going to do. And then with B, the same thing, you're going to carry out that message. So overall message and then two specific ones, and that's how you're going to solve that problem. The first part about the overall message might be the most challenging, but I bet branching it off is not going to be challenging nearly as much.
Great, thanks, Jon. Another question here. Tamara asked, if you are completely virtual, how do you create a Google My Business if you don't have an official business address?
No problem at all. Google gives you an opportunity to hide your location or just say this is a virtual office. So you don't actually need to put an address in there. To create a Google My Business profile, you do need to give them an address. This is why, because they'll send you a postcard saying, we want to make sure this is a legit business. So we're going to send you a postcard before we're going to go public. We are going to send you a verification code that you need to enter, and we will then honor this business. Why does Google do that? Because Google, again, doesn't want to look foolish. They don't want to have somebody in some Eastern European country or something, all due respect to those doing business in Eastern Europe. But they could do some shady stuff if they wanted and say, yeah, we're a business in Vancouver, British Columbia. Of course we are. And set up a business, and all of a sudden it turns out they're not there. So virtual places, you can even tell Google, like, I serve people in this area. So it's just in Canada or just in a certain, say, Saskatchewan or Manitoba. You can tell Google, I serve this area. But they will send you something to make sure it's verified as a real legit business. But you don't have to advertise your actual address.
Great. Okay. Fanny, do we have any questions on the phone?
We don't have any questions at the moment, but just as a reminder, to queue up for a question, please press 01 on your keypad. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Well, we have a ton more questions on the Q&A, so we can go through those instead.
For sure.
Okay, Samir is asking, what are easy metrics to use when determining your ROI when engaging in SEO?
There's a lot of letters in there. So ROI is what we say for return on investment, and SEO means search engine optimization. So just bringing everyone in. So Sunny's asking, what was the name again? I want to make sure.
Samir.
Samir. Okay. Hi, Samir. Okay, great. I can tell you're thinking this through. So there's a lot of money you could spend on SEO. I know people, good or bad, they charge a lot of money to get you into those first few spots. That's very coveted, highly sought after real estate. And so they will say, look, is it worth it for you to pay $700 to $1,000, even more, to get that spot, number one, on Google? And if you say yes, they will do everything they can. They will use all of the best tips and tricks that Google gives us and that people have just learned. So there's these SEO specialists, search engine optimization specialists, that just work on that. And what they're going to do is they're going to make sure that you get to the top. It's going to take a while, so that's the thing, right? So Google doesn't move fast. And the reason why Google doesn't move fast is because they don't want people overnight just kind of hacking the system and getting to that number one spot. They want the trusted people that they know are going to provide great service, great information. So it's going to always take longer than you think. So that's a difficulty for me and people like you probably. They're like, hey, I'm paying this guy $1,000 a month. Why am I not at the top of Google? Whether or not you value that, or you can do it yourself, maybe. So maybe the return on investment is your time to use the best practices to improve your ranking. That's going to be your thing. You got to realize, you got to think, what's my lifetime value of a patient, right? So if I get one new patient because of this, because I'm first on Google, this is what it's worth to me. Okay, that's worth paying $1,000. What if I get 2? What if I get 3? What if I get 10 new patients? Then is it worth the $700 to $1,000 a month? Probably we're starting to say, yeah, it is. So you really have to think, what's that highly sought after spot worth? Now, you can actually game the system and sort of game the system, but buy ads so that you can get it to the top every time. That's a whole different conversation. You asked about SEO, not about Google paid per click ads. So, but that's how you would do it, is you would try to figure out what's the lifetime value of a new patient, and is it worth paying someone else to do it, or is it worth my time to try to do it? But it is doable. I've seen that done many times. And so that's the ROI of your SEO.
Great. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, Anna has an interesting question here. Do you think it is in bad taste to ask your clients to write reviews on Google for your practice?
Not at all. Great idea. It's a very good idea, especially the ones that are raving, because you want to tell them, like, even get a system in place. Either it's a follow-up email using a third-party plugin that you use to send review requests, or just part of your everyday vernacular around the office. Hey, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're feeling better. I'm so glad you enjoyed the service. You know what would make my day would be if you could write a review. Sometimes people hand out cards right at the desk, say, here, go to this link and write a Google review. It would matter so much to us. And I think it's very powerful. And you could even instruct them. This is another thing that I tell people to do. when you're asking your patients to write a Google review, they don't have to include where you went to high school or how much you charge and all stuff. I would say just 3 things. What was the problem they had? What was the solution that you offered? And what are they experiencing since? Right? Here's a powerful testimonial. I had a bad toothache. I called up Dr. Wilson, his friendly staff and clean environment and excellent service. Now I have no toothache and I can't wait to come back. Who wants to come back to a dentist? This person does. But that's all, just 3 sentences. What was your problem? What was the solution? And how are you feeling now?
Great, thanks.
So, yeah, feel free to ask for Google reviews. They're very powerful.
Super. Interesting question here from Kendall that I think is something that we can all relate to these days. I try to find posts to engage in on Facebook or Instagram to boost my interactions, but many posts I see lately are political or shared images and opinions compared to genuine information about my friends' personal lives. How should I still engage on social media, even if that's the majority of what you see?
Oh, yes, Marie-Claire, we are all struggling with this. Kendall, I would just say continue to believe that there's more to talk about other than politics, right? And various COVID conspiracy theories. People are still suffering, right? They still have sore backs. They still have sore necks. They still need relaxation. They still yearn for the days of old, and they long for the days to come when their social media will be filled with things that are ultimately interesting. I do get that social media seems to thrive on getting people mad and, compelling argument and stuff between friends and family. But there's still other things that people are interested in. And if you could talk about that. Here's the thing about social media. If you just go and talk about yourself or whatever and you start posting things that nobody cares about, like what you had for dinner that day and all that, then people won't care. But if you can make a list of those 50 things that you are good at, the problems that you can solve, that patients are asking about or clients are asking about, then those things are interesting to people, right? And so you could start conversations about that. And you can even say, hey, I know this isn't political. Here's a break from political chatter, and here's something that we can all agree on. Do you have a sore back? Are you struggling with your kids or whatever? Are you struggling with mental health? All sorts of different things that you can talk about that are interesting, and a welcome break, I think, for people. And so people always click and engage with stuff that they're struggling with, right? And we're all like that. We only engage with stuff that's front of mind with a pain point that we have. And so I think that's what I would encourage you with, Kendall.
Great. There's a couple of people asking questions more about Google My Business. And so two people ask a similar question. One practices in 2 different offices. Another practices in 2 different cities. How can you work with that? Right.
Yeah, 2 different locations is no problem. Google is well aware of that. There's a setting that you can give 2 addresses so that your listing will still show up in a local search, because that's really what matters, right? It's the local search that matters. So you can always put 2 different locations, and then it will say, when they're searching in High River, Alberta, or, Calgary, Alberta, it doesn't really matter, or east end of town versus west end of town. It knows. Google knows where people are searching from, and so it'll bring up that particular listing. And when it comes to different businesses, I would just make 2 different listings, probably the easiest thing to do. So make 2 different Google My Business listings, especially if they're different services. But if it's the same company, then I would just use 2 different locations. So.
Okay.
But you can add different services too. That's the one thing that I would encourage you to do is within your Google My Business listing, there's an opportunity to write what services you provide. That's a great place to put your keywords in there. So if you're a physical therapist, you want to talk about sports injuries. You also want to talk about physiotherapy, maybe different techniques, because those are going to flag with Google that you offer these services for people that are suffering with it.
Super. Well, I'm seeing we're running low on time, but there's a couple more questions. Was there anyone on the line, Fanny, that wants to ask a question?
No. We don't have anyone so far. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Michaela has a question here about, is there a certain way you would advertise differently for a mobile business?
For a mobile business, would that mean mobile is in like, they travel around kind of thing?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you just have to explain the value of mobile versus a brick and mortar, right? So that's why your website's going to be important, because you could sell the advantage of being mobile. And so you would advertise differently in the sense of at some point you decided that mobile solves a problem, right? And the problem that it solves is better than going to a brick and mortar place. And so you should talk about that, because that's your competitive advantage. And I know a lot of people that would probably love to have mobile services because they're busy. They don't want to drive across town, sit in a quote-unquote dirty waiting room with other people that may be infected. I'm being dramatic here, but that is how people are thinking these days, right? So a mobile service may be of advantage. And so you got to change your message to reflect that advantage so that you're not just thrown in with all the other practitioners that are just like you.
Great. And I'll just take one last question, because it's an interesting one as well, from Kevin. What suggestions do you have for people in rural settings whose customers aren't very present on social media?
Yeah, Kevin, I would say they could be more, at least they're becoming more and more present on social media. Let's just say whether we see it now or not, social media is here to stay. And so the earlier you can get in, the better, because people will get there. The conversation a few years ago was, hey, I'm in a rural area. Do I still need a website? And maybe they thought no, but now it's still overwhelmingly yes. And referrals are important, right? You may think, oh, I don't need a website, or I don't need social media. I rely on referrals. Well, referrals are going to do some checking now these days, because consumers are evolving in their practice of how they check out people. So if they get a referral, but you have a garbage website or no online presence, they might find someone else still. So that's something you have to be there online. You have to show up. Your online presence is the new front door of your practice. So be a part of those conversations still in the rural areas, because they are happening. They might just be, you may not realize what channel they're on. Maybe you're on LinkedIn and they're on Facebook, or you're on Facebook and they're on Instagram, or you're on Instagram and they're on, TikTok or whatever, right? So they're there somewhere. People are online everywhere we go, even in rural areas. And if you can be an early adopter, you're only going to be ready for everyone that's coming more and more as the years go on. But great question, Kevin. I get that a lot, right? I would just say everybody's online regardless of where they are, and maybe they're just not telling you as much, or it's not coming up as much, but it is going to increasingly, and you want to be there early so you're not working hard to catch up.
Great. Thank you. So we are out of time. Actually, we're over time, so we're going to be concluding the webinar now. I think we got to all the questions in the chat and Q&A box, but if I missed one, you are welcome to contact Jon directly at jon@clinicsites.co, and I posted his email address in the chat as well.
Yeah.
And
my mother would want to know I'm a Jonathan, so it's JON at clinicsites.co, right?
Oh, so. Right, JON. Good call. Good point.
Yeah.
And a lot of questions about whether we're recording the webinar. Yes, we will be sharing a video of this webinar with everyone who registered hopefully by tomorrow, and if not by Monday for sure. So on that, I will end the webinar. Thank you for your time today. Thanks, Jon, for the great presentation and great Q&A session. Have a great rest of the day.